Buenos tardes, muchachos. Tonight, or this morning, or this afternoon, depending on what area you happen to be in, we're going to be flying around the Yucatan Peninsula over Mexico. The aircraft I've opted to fly today is this lovely L-39 Albatross, this little Czech trainer. One of the cool things about this plane is this one is also in DCS, and I gotta say, the Microsoft version is a lot easier to fly. I don't know if that's for better or for worse as far as that goes, but that's perfectly fine. One thing I'm going to do before I take off, though, is I'm going to put a couple extra combustibles in here, just in case. All right, that looks pretty good. For those of you who like to join us on today's flight, basically we're right down here. This is Mike, Charlie, Tango, while we're sitting here facing the runway itself. Notice how incredibly long this runway is. Very typical for this part of the world where you have very, very, very high temperatures along with a need for high density altitudes. So it's actually pretty cool. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be flying around the Yucatan Peninsula, like I said. We're going to be visiting a couple of the different pyramids of this and some of the ruins. From my initial reconnaissance flights, there's not a lot there to see. So one of the things I did to make us interesting today is I went ahead and brought in a little bit of clouds so we can have a little bit of a hide-and-go-seek is, I guess, what I'm going to kind of call it here. So we will get to see some of these things, but not nearly as many cool things as I was hoping. But hey, it's an excuse to go flying in a high-performance jet, so I don't care. So let's go ahead and get this party started. Now, one of the things I remember, the first time I flew this in DCS, I was blown away with how much runway this aircraft requires to get going. So what I'm going to do is, instead of back taxiing, I'm actually going to run this guy over and smash into him right here. And I'm going to take a side road, so to speak, kind of go around the back so I can give myself a little more wiggly room for takeoff here. Now, one of the things is as much as I love this particular plane, because it's just right. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. The handling is responsive. You can do some pretty silly things with it. The range is okay. I think I've averaged something like a 2-hour maximum fuel tank on this thing, depending on how rough you are with it. But just in going back and forth in the pattern there, I knocked out quite a few pounds of combustibles there, so it doesn't surprise me at all. So let's go ahead and get ready for takeoff here. I'm going to go ahead and now pop my flaps down. I love how the flaps is a button. Like, you push a button to select that settings of flaps. Like, that's so cool. For those of you who are old car fans, you probably remember a few years back, they had cars that actually had push-button transmissions for the purposes of changing gear. And we're not talking first gear, second gear. We're talking, drive, reverse, neutral, stuff along those lines. All right, we're going to just check to see if everything's clear. We got a Cessna 25C way off there in the distance. Just going to kind of peruse both directions. It looks pretty good. I'm going to give myself a little bit I'm not going to back taxi all the way down. That would just be an absolute nightmare. But what I will do is I'll give myself a little tiny bit of room. I just love these mega runways. It's always fun when you're flying like an ultralight or something like that, and you come down one of these runways and you're like, where am I supposed to land? At that point, I just probably land at the terminal itself. All right, let's go ahead and give everybody a quick little wiggle, make sure everything's working okay. We'll check to make sure our lights are in the proper position. That looks good there. Come to swing down here, make sure our lights are good, air conditioning's off. Apparently, a lot of those switches aren't required, and unfortunately, none of those fun switches that do things like turning the gun sight or anything like that, none of those work. Bummer. I love how in Russian aircraft, the brake is on the front. I actually have that on my joystick, so it's super fun to play with. All right, looks pretty good. Ailerons, neutral trim. All right, let's hit it. Just slowly apply full power here. Make sure it catches. There we go. And off. Woohoo! I've got an F-35 following me. Oh, boy. Now, this is what I love about these jet trainers. So, how's the weather where you are? My understanding is that it's been kind of rough. Yeah. So, anybody else not like taxes? They seem pretty high these days. Yeah. Running out of runway. And I got passed. Oh, well. One thing that my muscle memory is immediately kicking in is it demands that I apply counter-torque rudder, but it's like, we're a jet. We don't have that concept, so we don't have to worry about it too much. But what I will do, of course, is I'll go take off conventionally, clean up the plane, and let's go visit Chichen Itza, which is just going to be a little bit down this way. So I'm just going to kind of fly just along this route here for just a few moments, and we're going to go by the kind of little town, and then we're going to come up and visit the ruins in just a second. Like I said, they haven't gone crazy with Mexico at this point, so I expect it to basically be, a gray thing, just kind of a punch in a hole through the jungle here, which is kind of a shame because it's absolutely breathtaking for those of you who ever got a chance to actually fly down to Mexico and see it for yourself. I mean, it's so popular, it has its own international airport plugged into it, which I think is just kind of wild here. I'm going to sit here and see if I can see it from the air. Should be over here on the right. All right, there's the main road. Give it a tug. pointing more or less right at it. Then we'll proceed up north and check out some of the other cool castles and pyramids that are located in this part of Mexico. One of the things that amazes me is we've always flown past Mexico. I don't think I've ever actually taken time flying over Mexico. And there it is. Cool. All right, let's get going. All right, so this aircraft is not the world's fastest aircraft for any means. You can get it up to about 400 knots if you're kind of holding a perfect level at just the magic altitude. That doesn't mean it is a slow airplane, however, and one of the reasons I opted for it this morning is to give us a little more time so that we can kind of see some things. One of the things I was worried about is if I took like the TBM 930 again, we wouldn't get to see quite as much as this peninsula here, and I do want an opportunity to kind of check out some of the spots. Also, one of the coolest things you can see, of course, is burning through a cloud, and everything gets all bumpy, and you get all kind of the haze that sort of appears directly on it. It's just one of those things that's absolutely wild when it occurs. It's such a kick out of this every time. Oh, man. That is just so cool. Look at that. Excellent. All right, well, let's start making our way up to our first waypoint. I've got plenty of fuel in this thing, so if I'm a little hard on the engines, nobody's going to get too grumpy at me. I don't have to pay for this. So our first destination after vision at Chichen Itza is we're going to go up to north of Temozon, and then we're going to basically pull straight west and kind of head towards kind of the west-southwest side of things here. But I want to give myself a little tiny bit of altitude as I do so. We're trying to get up to probably 10, 11, 12,000 feet. I remember when I was first flying this in DCS, which was, like I said, everything in DCS is very, 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 very sensitive for whatever reason. And just being fascinated with how hopelessly impossible it was to try to hold one specific altitude or attitude with this plane. Now, in Flight Sim, I just kind of set it, and, like, you know, if I wanted to, I could kind of float back here and get in the back seat, and I could look around. You know, I can kind of wave at the people as they go by without worrying about the things going crazy. The F-35 would have been a very interesting choice for this. I thought about it, but I'm actually against it because it was having a glitch with it, and I still cannot figure out why it's being so weird. All right. Mosol is probably, I think, what is it, 5-6 minutes in this direction. But one of the things I'm fascinated with already is so many times when we go flying together, we always concentrate on regions that tend to be fairly mountainous. And it's not to say there won't be mountains that we'll see today. It's just to say this is a very, very lush, verdant, and it's very flat. And I just think that's absolutely kind of neat as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come down this way. I'm going to go visit. There's a little tiny town right near where the ruins themselves are. And it's just kind of neat because it's like jungle, jungle, town, jungle, jungle. And I always get a kick out of stuff like that. I'm going to go and swing my way over this way. There's the town. It's right off my 12 o'clock there. You can see it right there. Let's go ahead and do this properly. Cut the throttle a little bit there. We don't want to overspeed. Speaking of which, I should probably disable damage on this thing real fast. It's one of the mistakes that I always forget to change. Failure and damage. Easy. Apply. Go back, resume. Sweet. Now I can be rough with it. Ha ha. Oh, Lafarog, I'm on a 6. You're not going to get me this time. Oh, no. Speed brakes. Speed brakes. Not so fast. That's fun. Every single time. And if that doesn't make you dizzy, I don't know what does. All right, heading up to our second little spot here. Like I was saying a few minutes ago, we have a ton of very, very lush. And all of a sudden, it's like, poof, we have this town just kind of chilling in the middle of nowhere. The closest airport, by the way, was the one that we flew out of just a few minutes ago. That's the Chichen Itza. I know there's many ways to pronounce it, but unfortunately, I'm an ignorant American, and that's about as effective as I'm going to be here. So what we need to do is we need to find the highway out of here, which I believe is going to be right here on my left. There we go. And the castle itself should be right down here on the right. Let's see what we got this time. That's it. Nice. All right, let's pull ourselves west. Plenty of energy stored up in this plane. Oh, that's sweet. About a 60 degree. Go ahead and do a good old-fashioned float out of your chair. One of the fun things, by the way, with negative Gs that nobody has ever experienced who have not been able to try a negative G, like inside of an airplane, is everything in the plane floats for just a moment. And first of all, you know, obviously anything that's not tied down, like your passengers, obviously start floating. But the other part that's really, really fun when you do negative Gs in a plane is all the dust, dirt, sand, and all that stuff that was on your shoe that you kind of kicked down on, you know, the kind of the floor, starts floating around the plane with you. And you get this I almost like to call it a haze of things that just get in your eyes when you get those negative G's like that. So once you get all those negative G's and you go, ah, and then you pull back, all the dust that started to cloud the air around you suddenly goes, wham, and slams back into like random spots and like kicks up like kind of little eddies and everything like that. It's just the most like fascinating little thing that, you know, it'd be neat if games like thought of those things, but at the same time, I think it's almost a level of detail that is not required. So one of the coolest things you can do in IFR, in my opinion, is always flying between cloud layers. So like actually being inside here. I'll set the clouds up to be a little worse in a minute so you can see what I like to call the tunnel of pillows. But you can see how nice this is. Speaking of which, if we want to take a look at some of the recent flight sim news, we are officially on the new update here. This is sim update number 10. The other thing we got is we have a world update that's included Canada, which is kind of a bummer because I swear they did it just to annoy us because they put that hatch out right after we had just flown in Vancouver and we had just flown over in Quebec a few weeks ago too. Toro John, absolutely wonderful. Thank you, Toro John. I intend to. Like I said, not too crazy of a flight today. I don't want to do anything excessive. You want to talk about a long week? Oh my gosh. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but you do need to know that this is the most free time I've had in probably the last 10 days. So it's been crazy. All right, let's say hi to some folks. Linux, welcome back. Steel, welcome back. Lafflerog, I know it's you. Welcome back. Shuttle to Podone, I forgot. I'm sorry. And then Renowned Hook. I'm not sure if you're with us or you're just kind of hanging along. Enjoy the flight. All right, let's kind of head down this way. And like I said, we're going to pick up a little bit of altitude. Nothing too excessive here. This is going to be the long section of our flight here as we kind of cruise over the peninsula proper. One of the things that I love about this plane is we can bang out the whole peninsula just like this. So our ultimate destination at this particular point is going to be taking us to Mérida, which is right on the coast. It's going to be near south of Progreso. And it's going to be a little bit north of places like Uman, which is really, really cool. And there's a bunch of ruins kind of north of it. But what we're actually going to do is when we get to Mérida is we're going to come straight south and kind of head out Muna and then take a look at the more famous ruins that we're going to have on the end. And like I said, I wish Flight Sim would like give us that detail, but hey, I like flying in formation with jets. So like I said, it does not bother me in the slightest. All right, let's get a little bit of altitude here. I love this. Like, we have a bunch of things that are in English, max N1, avoid continuous operation. Like, all these things are in English, and then you get kg times 100. I find that very, very interesting. That it's like every once in a while you get something in Cyrillic as well as in English here. And I also love the fact that Russian circuit breakers are switches, whereas American circuit breakers are these little like kind of black nubs where you have to like pull them in and out, and sometimes it's hard to see whether or not they've been engaged. So it's a little design change. Another thing I love about Russian aircraft is the attitude indicator is basically reversed. So I think that's so cool that I don't know, it's just neat. It's just really, especially the old-fashioned ones that used to have a little white tape in the middle that would kind of shift back and forth. So wild the way that used to work. Another really, really neat thing, too, is units like having kilometers if you're doing any sort of work with DME. But unfortunately, the way they gave us this plane is we don't get RSBN or anything like that, which is kind of a bummer, but oh well. We also don't have an afterburner, not that we needed one. This particular aircraft, the L-39, they basically used it for a bunch of training. If you did any learning to fly, military aircraft, basically anywhere east of Germany, you probably had some time on one of these. Kind of like if you want to think about the Goshawk over the United States, or if you want to go back a little ways, you had the TF-33, which was a super duper cool trainer, and I really wish they'd have one of those for Flight Sim, because they're just, I don't know, they're just classic. We're going to take a P-51 and we're going to put a jet in there somewhere. It's just, I don't know, I find that aircraft very interesting. Give this a couple taps of trim. We're going to go ahead and level this sucker off, and we're pretty much going to hold right here. This is about, we'll go up to 20, why not? I just wanted to get a little tiny bit of altitude for this portion of the flight, and then we'll dive back to the clouds and go visit the other spots. And about, let's see here. I just love, this is 1,000 kilometers an hour. I just love that. And then the red line's all the way up there. I don't know, I just get such a kick out of that. Down just a teeny tiny bit. Just a little bit. Oh, it's just like the one in DCS. It can be kind of tricky to get down. Great choice with the F-35 links. I thought about it, like I said, I was having some issues. Check this out. So you know how in the F-16 you've got like kind of like a little nub for the purposes of trim? Look at how this one works. It's like a little switch, and you can't do both at the same time. I'm not doing aileron trim, because the moment I set my aileron trim, I'm going to be spending the rest of the flight struggling to reset my aileron trim. But I appreciate the fact like it's kind of like a little like cross kind of shape there that we have. All right, now we're going to do some cruising. We're going to be Izamal in just a few minutes. It's going to be directly underneath us. And I think I have already broken Flight Sim here. Let's zoom out a little bit. I thought I was pretty close. Oh, by the way, I like how Flight Sim interprets your flight plan rather than, stick to the one that I originally had here. that's okay. It's not going to cause any real harm. I like that. It's about 52 nautical miles. Nice. So we have some interesting news as far as other flight sim stuff goes. First of all, you have that big anniversary update that's going to be coming out shortly, adding a bunch of really, really awesome planes, keeping folks who do YouTube on flight sim pretty busy for a little while, I'm sure. The other thing that we're going to be getting that's going to be super duper exciting is a bunch of aircraft that kind of go with it. So we're going to be seeing some classics like the DC-3. We're going to get a new Airbus as well as a couple other kind of old school. I must have called them, what do you want to call Flight Sim 2004 Century of Flight kind of things. So that'll be kind of exciting as well once that comes out in a few months. Other flight sim news, as many of you probably heard, X-Plane 12 is out. It's basically in its open early access kind of format right now. I did a video on that a couple weeks ago, just kind of playing with it. I've been playing with it on and off, but really, really enjoying the fact that we can do helicopters again, something that I really, really wish we get over here in Flight Sim shortly, because I miss helicopters to death, because they're just so cool and they're just so much work to fly. Not that, these complicated airplanes are not. This is a jet trainer. You just kind of hit the gas and go. I don't have to worry about, cow flaps or anything like that. Although apparently there are some jets out there that do have, basically cooling flaps that pop open. More commonly you get on jets is those giant extra air intakes to allow the jet engines to get a little more air than they needed previously. It's one of those complicated things that once you start getting supersonic, apparently the air does not behave. So it's just kind of fun to see how that sort of transitions with time. And there we go. Another video coming up from my end. We're going to be seeing the VNAV video, which I know folks have been asking about for about 2 years now. That will be coming out on Monday for those of you who are curious about that. It was not what I expected when I sat down to put the video together, which it's okay. I mean, I think it's very, very cool how it works and everything, but I was hoping for just a little tiny bit more. And of course, when we do one of these live streams at some point, I'll probably play around with it now that I know how to get it to behave. There we go. Look at this. This thing just trims out so nice. Ooh, well, I spoke too soon, as always. I really wish Flight Sim would get the linear trim here, as opposed to this quickly, if you press and hold it, it goes faster trim. Just one of those things. Although I know some people just put their trim on an axis, which is the easiest thing to do. Another thing I noticed is the plane slowly takes a left turn, so I'm probably burning fuel unevenly here, which is too bad. All right, I like how there's a vibration gauge, millimeters per second. I love that. Okay, so in a few moments, we're going to begin our aggressive descent here. You can see this is a total en route time. Coming down to 33 miles away, we'll probably give it when this is about 20 or so. We'll flip the plane over and dive through the clouds and go take a look at some of the local stuff that's going to be down there on the ground. Of course, look what happens. We immediately go popping out of trim here. But I'm getting 429, so I'm pretty impressed. This thing's fast. Of course, if this were the DCS version, we'd still be climbing. I remember one time flying it in VR thinking, I'm just going to go up to 36,000 feet and kind of take a peek around kind of a thing like that. You can imagine how disappointed I was when I'm at 15,000 feet half an hour later going, what is this, a 172? Come on. But believe it or not, the tiny little squirrel that powers this thing, he gets tired. He gets tired. I just love flying through clouds. I think it's the most coolest thing. Uh-oh. Let's see how much he's paying attention right here. I'm about to flip this plane over and take us through those clouds really aggressively into this gap here. One of those things, for those of you who are huge fans of kind of World War II documentaries, is you always saw the wingovers, like the generic. Think of a black and white World War II video that you saw at some point in your career. How many times have you seen them kind of just turn away from the camera, show their belly, and just kind of put themselves in a nice gentle dive? It's like the World War II airplane image. Or you have just massive formations of bombers or people looking at machine guns. It's just I think they had the same 16 footages and they just, reverse it or flip it horizontally or something like that to try to make it not obvious that it's just the same image over and over. But it is a pretty cool maneuver. And it's also a positive G maneuver, so you don't have to worry about your engine cutting out on you. Ready? Feel sorry for this thing. It's going to get very loud in here in a second. Still got 700 combustibles, though. 21. Now, the problem is, in the real plane, if you try to move the controls as fast as I'm just about to, you get that kind of a thing. I always find that really entertaining. Now, look at the attitude indicator. Am I facing up or am I facing down? What angle am I currently facing? People behind me just went, whoa! Knowing that they're going to be able to keep up. Oh my gosh, just too efficient. Oh, got cut off. That's okay though. They want to absorb some of the energy here. 800 kilometers an hour. What do I got? 433. We're moving. This is cool. I'd love to have one of these. Imagine this thing just as like your private flyer. I mean, you could fit somebody in the back seat, but obviously, you know, you're not going to bring the whole family or something like that. Come around this way. Perfect. Now, another nice one that would be really, really cool is getting one of those F-16Ds, the ones that have the double seats. There we go. Right down underneath this cloud layer. Stomp on the gas. And I would imagine that in the real world, if you're going speeds like this and you hit the gas that hard, you'd probably get a compressor stall or something along those lines. I'm not sure if the engines on these are centrifugal or they're axial, but it would make a really, really, really big difference. All right. Oh, man, the controls are so hard to move. I love it. So realistic. Give us a little bit of down trim here. I think I got just about 400 knots right now. It's definitely quicker. Oh, dangerous altitude. That sounds not good. Ripping across the clouds, low level. I don't want to look behind me because the moment I look away, we'll try it anyway. I'm probably going to crash into the ground. Nope, we're good. All right, we're going to be hitting up our next set of ruins in just a second. Like I said, I would not be surprised if it's going to be about as exciting as the last couple that we saw. Come on, Microsoft, you can do it. We've got that really cool one in, what was it, in Baghdad. We should be able to get these cool ones out here, too. I left just a tiny bit. Of course, the YouTube comments later on this week will say, well, actually, you were about 10 miles to the east or the west of that, and that's probably why you didn't see it. That's okay, though. All right. Man, this thing's a lot slower at this altitude. Probably a little harder on the gas, too. Let's see here. Fuel flow, I'm doing about 1,300 pounds per hour. I have to kind of time this carefully here. Got to do a really, really big one of these. And there it is. Right there. Neat. Actually, you can see a little bit of it. That's so satisfying. All right, everybody find the highway. I forget what exit we are. Se 117 or something along those lines. Nice. Love maneuvers like that. That is just so satisfying. All right, we're going to be flying, basically taking the highway down to Muna. I have damage turned off, so that means theoretically I can go under one of these bridges, but I don't necessarily recommend it. I feel like I'll ricochet off the ground or something like that, and everybody will pile up behind me, like always. Maybe we can still have a little bit of fun while we're here, though. Nice and short wingspan on this thing. It's like flying an A3 or oh, I'm not an A3, an A4 Sky. There we go. This is always dangerous. All right. Oh, now it tells me I was at a dangerous altitude. And this is Merida. Huge city. Nice. One of these days we'll do Los Angeles in helicopters, and I'm sure it'll be a laggy nightmare. That's fun. Alright, I'm going to come burning across the top of their airport here. I'm sure they're really going to appreciate us doing this, but that's okay. As long as the altitude isn't dangerous, I'm not going to be concerned about it at all. Let's see here. Let's see, we have Butternips says, the problem is they're too expensive to fuel, seeing as they only take vodka. So, fun story. For those of you who track, interesting things about airplanes, is that in a lot of Russian, very, very large aircraft, and even small aircraft, they basically use an alcohol-based coolant for the purposes of their radars. And they actually design things so you basically burn through it as your flight continues. They figured it's easier to engineer that and just refill it every once in a while than they are to go ahead and design it so that, it can keep itself cool, or it has, big, powerful fans, or just, vents that pop open or something along those lines. So they said, well, this is perfectly fine. It's a great system. So what would happen, of course, is some of these aircraft, like if you're talking a Tupolev 95 or something along those lines, would have really, really, really big reservoirs of this, if you want to think of it another way, basically vodka, sitting there ready to go. You're talking, 500-600 gallons of this stuff. So, of course, people who are entrepreneurial would actually say, hey, wait a minute, this sounds like a great idea. Why don't I go ahead and, take a little off the top, do some skimming kind of a thing. So they did. So what would happen is these flight crews, of course, would get inside their plane. They take off, and they're expecting to have, looking down, we should have 1,000 liters of basically alcohol-based coolant. And they look at it and be like, we have 12. I wonder what happened. And, of course, you'd find the entire flight crew completely intoxicated, or, somebody shows up in a new Mercedes-Benz or something like that. It's like, how could you afford that? We're in the middle of Russia and, Murmansk or something along those lines. So the comment there about the fact they're expensive to fuel, it's a different kind of expensive to fuel depending on the model. And, of course, there's different types of jet fuel that you have to be mindful of. All right, we're now going to go sneak over to Muna now, which is not going to have any particular ruins or anything cool, but it'll give us an opportunity to kind of get our bearings. So we kind of wander up here. I feel sorry for the engine on this thing. I am working it, but on the flip side, I'm looking over at the temperature gauge, and I haven't come over 420°C yet. So I guess I don't have to worry about it too much. Let's see how ye old GPS is dealing with our shenanigans here. Oh yeah, that's exactly the flight plan I just... Look at that. Come on. You can fix things like this. You don't have to... It's not hard. Oh. That's me rolling my head back and forth. I'm going to get right into this big poofy cloud here, and then we'll probably come diving back out. This aircraft, by the way, for those of you who do fly in VR, amazing. Truly an excellent, excellent aircraft that's super duper easy. Top G is asking, what are my sims? One thing I want to say about the performance right now is I do have DLSS enabled. So that's been really helping with frame rates. Not that I have like a bad computer or it doesn't run well or anything along those lines. So if you're interested in specs, I actually have a video, I think it's not this summer, but the previous summer, that literally shows you everything and explains it. On the short version, the 10850K for the processor, to 99. It's what do we have? A 3080 GTX for the processor, 32 RAM. Everything's a solid state hard drive. That's all there really is to it. I'm running at 2K resolution, essentially. And I have to compress the heck out of it to send it over to YouTube because I don't have an internet connection that gives me an up speed fast enough to be able to do like really, 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 really high performance. Or file sizes, exactly what that's like. All right, let's go ahead and sneak into the clouds one more time. Some radar operator on the ground going, what on earth is he doing? But don't worry, we're not in vets and they won't get mad at us. Sweet. The real world, by the way, when you try to trail this close to a cloud, what happens is you get little poofy clouds that reach down from the big cloud that smack into you. And also the cloud will suck you into it. So it's one of those, you sit there and all of a sudden, like, everything's fine, and this is all of a sudden you see out the windshield. It's like, but I wasn't in that cloud. What happened? And it just kind of does one of those. Another thing with clouds in the real world is it makes it so bumpy you're going to puke. It's like, oh yeah, instrument flying, it's not that hard. Look at this, I'm doing great right now. Until you realize this is not how smooth it would be in the real world. All right, just gonna kind of hide in this cloud just a teeny tiny bit. It does not stop Laffle from staying 6 inches off me this entire flight. Butternips is also quite the artist at flying in formation. One of my favorite examples ever during one of our DCS sessions is we're coming back at night time. And he says, look out your right window. So I'm like, I'm going to do one of these things like this. And he is basically, his wingtip is over my wingtip. So if you imagine a wingtip of an F-16 right here. And I'm like, oh, God. So he's like, hey, don't twitch your controls. It's like, okay. So I kind of forgot the fact he was, in my airplane, essentially. So I did this. And as soon as I did that, all of a sudden, the plane caught fire and started spiraling out of control. And what had happened is he was flying so close that when I lifted up that wing, I just smacked into his wing. The scary part is despite the extensive damage to both aircraft and the fires, by the way, we still landed. And I'm like, wow, what a solid airplane. Whee! Oh! Love that sensation. Oh, that's good. All right, we're good. All right, let's go sneak down to our next waypoint, and then we're going to head into Campeche, and then basically land us. Campeche. There we go. I knew it. One of the other fun ones that I did with Butternups ages ago is we actually flew this aircraft as well as the C-101, where he would fly in the front seat and I would fly in the back seat, and we'd switch once in a while. And you're like, why on earth would you do a combat mission with a training aircraft like this? And one of the greatest parts about having somebody in the back seat with you is they keep an eye on things. They also deal with things like navigation, radio, trying to deal with that fire that's getting progressively worse, letting you know that, hey, the bomb settings is supposed to be XYZ. And I know in the future you're probably going to have AI assistants in aircraft that are going to be kind of helping you with some of those tasks. But it doesn't change the fact that all the sarcastic comments are going to go away as soon as you switch from using humans to AIs for that purpose in the backseat. Oh man, that is so cool. I just love these little just town, and then there's nothing. All right, let's see how hard this one's going to be to find here. Another set of Mayan ruins. Apparently I'm at a dangerous altitude. Who knew? There we go. Sweet. Perfect. Right there. Now notice, I promised you mountains. I got you some mountains. Look at that. Like legitimate mountains here. This is a fun flight. I have to work for this one. All I have to say is this aircraft is probably much, much, much cooler right now than it would be if we were flying in this particular region of the Earth this time of year. But feeling it would get a little balmy, and I imagine probably get a little hazy as well. One of the problems we have now is switching up to the fall where I live, and the temperature goes from so hot I literally cannot breathe inside the airplane, like overnight, to as soon as you get to 5,000 feet, you need a winter coat. It's it's just incredible with non-pressurized planes. Apparently no dangerous altitude. Problem solved. Dangerous altitude. All right, let's stay nice and low here. I'm probably going to have to slow up. All right, we just get a little bit of turbulence. Nothing bad. Love this area. Reminds me a lot of flying over the Congo. We had some very, very absurd operations flying over the Congo. I'm trying to land at basically spots like that little clearing right there. Let's land a plane right there, because we could. All right. And there it is. But I found one. That one I'm sure of. There's a little visitor center there, too. Back around. Oh, boy. Going in the wrong direction here. What did they say about getting disoriented in a cloud? How it's a leading cause of accidents? We'll be fine. All right, now to Campeche. We got a VF-35, much, 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 much higher than us. It is a little tiny bit of altitude. We have a relatively short flight, about 55 nautical miles. We should be able to get up some altitude before we get there. All right, well, let's take a look at what the real-world weather actually is today. Oh, wow. Working too hard, as I like to say. Ooh, it's definitely warm outside, though. You can feel the whole plane just go, huh? What are you trying to achieve here? All right, let's zoom in a little tiny bit here. Let's see what our weather is going to be when we get there. 18,500. It is 170 at 5 knots. So that's going to put us on runway 16. Let's see here. Make that one go away. Runway 16. Here we come. Runway, whoa. So in the real plane, when you grab onto these little knobs and you start cranking them, they have two different settings. They have it won't move, or it moves too easily and I can't get it straight. That's especially true in this one. It moves too easily and can't get it straight. All right, runway 16. So we're more or less going to be perpendicular to it on our way over to it. Wow, now it's all bright. I guess I don't need my lights. All right, let's come down here. Hey there. All set. Beautiful. Wow. Get a good view of everything. Now, the neat thing is that we make our way progressively closer to the coast. It's just amazing how it goes from, thick jungle to farms to houses. It's just I just love how, no matter where you are on Earth, it's always like that. It's just one of those kind of cool things. And a little to the right. Man, does this thing climb well. We're doing fine on fuel, too. We burnt about 3/4 of a tank so far with the extremely aggressive handling of this aircraft. So that's pretty good. So it gets about the fuel economy of a Cessna 182. Not really. All right, park it right there. That looks pretty good. Cool. About 7.5 to 8 degrees, something like that. Always gives us a pretty solid climb. Maintains a bunch of speed. Probably level off at about 15,000 or so. All right, let's see if we can get some information about that airport before we get to it. Winds are 170 at 5. Visibility is a little low. There's some scattered clouds at 8,000 feet. Temperature is 260.21, so yeah, it's going to be cloudy. Altimeter is 299.3. Let's see here. Runway 16 in use. And they last updated the METAR. What time is it right now? Just looking at the clock. About an hour ago-ish. About 50 minutes ago. So not too bad. Not too bad. Let's see here. On landing, let's go ahead and see what they have for terminal arrival procedures. The terminal is going to be on the right side of the runway. I will meet everybody kind of in sort of the main parking area in front of the gate for the purposes of our picture, but that should be pretty good. And then there's a big parking lot right over there on the left, and we also have a VOR, not that we can tap into it. Actually, wait a minute. That gives me an idea. 116.2. Turns out I have a nice portable one of these. It's called a 4-flight. 116.2. Let's see what we got here. Ooh. Nope, we're either out of range, but I did notice that this did change, so it does recognize the fact that we flipped over to that particular VOR. Oh well, we don't get to ME though. Bummer. All right, now what do we got here? We got about 15,200. We'll probably start pushing us down now. And there we go. Another fun thing about this aircraft in DCS that we don't get in Microsoft Flight Sim is you don't get all the weapons, obviously. But the arming system on this aircraft is kind of different. Like there's a switch to turn on the gun, then there's a switch to turn on the gun sight, then there's a switch to turn on the circuit that enables you to fire, then there's a switch that prevents you from firing, on top of the switch that tells you I only want to fire the gun. So it's just kind of one of those where it's like, how about like on a P-47 where once it's armed, you just squeeze the trigger and it fires. Love that. No, unfortunately, we have no RSBN coverage. I am super disappointed. Or you could have NCNS if you're a little old school. I think one of the first YouTube videos I ever put together was trying to explain how to fly the AN-24, as well as its complicated Doppler navigation system, which I still think is one of the coolest things ever. Wow. You can feel how hot it gets here in the summer. Just look at kind of the colors of some of the different fields and things like that. And you know it's just like, ooh. The other thing we get to see, of course, that we haven't been able to see so far, unless you were looking at our right window here, is this lovely thing called the ocean. Nice. We could technically take this flight and go head over to like Cuba and Puerto Rico and stuff like that, but that's going to be a bit longer of a flight for us. So theoretically, I'm just kind of looking out the window here. That kind of reminds me of Florida, to be honest. You get these just straight lines. Again, where I live, we can't get away with a straight line highway. It's kind of tricky. So our airport should basically be right in here somewhere. So I should probably start losing a little altitude here. All right. Nice and relaxing. This is just nice. This thing just goes. Alrighty then, let's head on down. Oh, there goes all the change out of my pockets. Oh well. For those of you who have not seen the movie Hot Shots, by the way, highly recommended if you like the military parody. They basically took the movie Top Gun and a bunch of other movies and just kind of ran with it in a very hilarious way. And there's a great scene when he does flip the plane and everything in the plane just sort of dumps in his face. So it's like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Oh, there's those scattered clouds. So Microsoft Flight Sim, you get a point for that one. Love how bright it is. Like, just the sky is just so clear. Ew. That's not so good. This is Alberto Esuna Onge. That should be interesting. All right, I'm just going to peer out the window real quickly here. Should be able to make it out any second now. My brain tells me that this is it right here, which means we'd have to come around here, which is what I expect, because we're going to kind of do one of those. So what I will actually do is I will come to my left just a little bit and just kind of woo and do one of those things directly into it. Of course, what I didn't realize is I'm doing a good solid 400 knots, and I'm about to... Oh, I'm already past 10,000 feet. Oh, well. It's a live stream. We can do what we like to do here. If we wanted to do things realistically, we could have loaded like a 737 up on VATSIM or something. We'll save that for another day, though. I haven't done that in a little while. Never remember that time we went flying around France. Oh, my gosh, that was hard. Most work I've ever had to do for a live stream. Holy smokes. Flying into Baltimore, too, with the 737 for, like, the opening weekend of it. That was a bit of a project, too. Definitely a multi-crew situation. All right, let's bring it in. One of the things I like about this aircraft as well is these buttons don't work if you ever exceed a specific speed. So it'll actually flap everything back up. The other thing I like about this airplane too is we have speed brakes. Of course, when you kick them in, it makes your nose go straight down, which is kind of dangerous. This is not an F-16 where you have to feather out the speed brakes to land without like smacking it really, really hard, which is kind of nice. Oh my gosh, look at the haze. So I was commenting visibility is only 7 statute. Look at this. Can you feel how hot and sticky it is right now? I mean, it's only 26 degrees, so it's not that hot. 26 Celsius, by the way. So it can't be too bad, but just it feels thick outside. Get some density altitude action here. All right, Campeche, here we come. .33 feet gives us a traffic pattern altitude of a lot higher than I am. Yep, that's the runway. We're good. Oh my gosh, look at how hot it is outside. Maybe not hot, but just sticky. Very sticky. There we go. Nice. Is that like an extension? Must be like a military runway or something like that, because it really looks like they have 2 runways plugged into each other there. Cool. This is going to be the world's worst base to final. Nose is getting heavy. Yeah, worst base to final ever. This is how you stall the plane, by the way. You try to force it. Yeah, at least we're on speed. Your altitude's dangerous, jerk. We're here. That's sweet. Definitely better than when I try to land the F-18, that's for sure. All right, anybody like to pop into the picture? We're going to be right over here by the terminal. Man, that thing is sweet. I like that. I'll land that any day. I like how there's like 2 people, just civilians flying around in this. You know, no G suit, no oxygen mask. Nah, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And we're here. Welcome to Campeche. That doesn't look safe. Mesmerizing, mesmerizing. All right, let's go spin us around. Nice. We're here. See that? I instinctively pop the RPM up a couple RPM to keep it from, getting lead in the spark plugs and all that kind of stuff. Ugh. I guess it's just like instant force of habit. All right, I'll see how everybody else does here as they're coming in. The Virgo's swinging in. Lovely, lovely. A couple moments later, followed by another L30. Oh, these are the L39s from like the different packs and stuff like that. Gotcha. So I just got the default one because it was like super duper duper cheap. So I'm not. Oh, that's why they all have different names and stuff like that. Okay. I appreciate the fact that Flight Sim assumes that because you're a jet, you need a still propeller. You would think it would just like replace it with a model like a basic jet. I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things or something. All right. While everybody's getting themselves together, we'll go ahead and make sure that bad things will happen to me. Apply. Cool. Save. All right. Looks pretty good. This would look a lot better if everybody was in L39s, right? Which you are. But like I said, unfortunately, I don't have that full pack or anything like that. It's just so hazy. Let's see here. We have another one. Then Lynx is coming in an F-35. I'm kind of surprised Lynx doesn't just show up like vertically and just go thunk right next to us or something along those lines. That would be pretty amusing. What do we got here? Let me take a look. Nope. It's just kind of look like that. Oh, well. Go ahead and take our picture. Of course, like I said, some of us are facing the wrong direction, but does not matter or anything like that. All right, so like always, when we get to the end of one of these, I always like to ask if anybody has any questions or future suggestions, anything that you'd like to see a video of. I do keep a little kind of a master running list of all of them so that I know kind of roughly what we need to do next or things that people are just interested in seeing. We have some interesting stuff, like I said, coming up with the VNav, and we'll do some stuff at TACAN next week as well. And then coming down the pipe, we have a couple interesting little navigation exercises, but we'll do that a little later on once we get to it. Go ahead and take a quick picture, and let me go ahead and sneak my way to certain death here. For the record, though, Flight Sim versus X-Plane 12, Flight Sim has a little bit too much ground effect. Did we ever fly a twin prop? Lafarog, we have flown twins before. We've done a few different twin pops. I'm about to get run over by an F-35. This is going to be awesome. All right, we need a nice body of water. I know exactly which one. Oh, I'll let you pass. There we go. What up? Look at the size of that plane compared to this thing. That is amazing. Oh my gosh, is this thing even going to get in the air? All right, there we go. So what we'll have to do is do something like we'll have to do bonanzas next time. We have not done bonanzas, I think, ever. We've definitely done, I think we've done the Diamond. I think we've done the Beach 200 a couple times. And I feel like I've also done like the 247 as well as the Beach 18. So I know we've flown those as twins. So it'd just be, like I said, it's a good time to take out the Bonanza. Or not the Bonanza, the Twin Bonanza, right? Oh, that's not fair. It's a good time to go ahead and take out the Baron, not the Twin Bonanza, sorry. Okay, I believe there's some ocean kind of in that direction. Take a right turn here. Man, this thing's nice. Once you lighten up the fuel load, you get kind of that air show performance. All right. Ooh, that was a good flight. This plane is nice. One thing that we have coming down in DCS land is you're going to be seeing an F-100 soon, which is like, yay. We're also going to see a Phantom. We've got a couple other coming down as well, which is going to be pretty exciting. I just kind of wish we saw them in Flight Sim, too. That'd be awesome. There we go. I see water. Meanwhile, everybody's down there kind of going about their day, and all of a sudden you hear this whooshing noise. Just kind of comes zipping by. Let's see how bad this thing is in a stall here. Ready? Cut the engine off. Send out the speed brakes. Here we go. It got very quiet. Look at that. It's like a falling leaf. Uh-oh. Oh, that's bad. Oh, no. Well, it's been nice knowing everybody. Hopefully you've enjoyed your trip. And we'll see you again in the future.